Hey, crime fighters and true crime junkies. This is Derek Judd with Cowboy Criminology. Of course, I am your host, the Cowboy Criminologist. So, I got a new video today, and I want to do something a little different. For those of you who follow the channel regularly, you know that the tagline for this channel is getting to the truth behind true crime. And if you watch my video about my opinions about New York NYPD's policy changes and some of their successes and failures in leadership, it got me thinking, what does a good leader in a law enforcement agency look like? Of course, you want to have somebody who has experience. You want to have somebody who has education. You want to have somebody who has training. And you want somebody who has integrity. And it's interesting. Lately, you've been seeing a lot of law enforcement officers be arrested, high-ranking law enforcement officers. In the case of the FBI, you see high-ranking officials in the FBI being used as political pawns in order to promote an agenda, which is as distasteful as it is sad, and raises a lot of concerns about the integrity of law enforcement, and especially when it comes to the FBI, because the FBI is charged with investigating law enforcement agencies and especially law enforcement officers for civil rights violations, and a lot of times that comes under a court order. Minneapolis fell under that. Albuquerque PD. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office is currently under investigation by the FBI for different facets. But when you get caught with your hand in the cookie jar, how are you supposed to be the one policing the police, is what it comes down to. So there's a sheriff in Florida by the name of Grady Judd. As far as I know, there's no relation. But given the part of the country, there probably could be somewhere down the line distantly. But Sheriff Grady Judd of Polk County, Florida, I've been following him for a long time. And every time I see him post a video or hold a press conference, I'm just amazed. He has a very no-nonsense, I'm going to tell you exactly the way it is. And a lot of people don't do that anymore. Whether you're the chief of police, whether you're the sheriff of a county, your main concern is, if you're the chief of police, is keeping that position because you want to make everybody happy. If you're the sheriff, you want to retain your position and you want to keep getting reelected. Let me explain why Sheriff Grady Judd is so amazing, in my opinion. First off, he's won 5 straight elections in a row, which actually set a record in Florida. He's got over 50 years of law enforcement experience working for the same agency. Now, this is somebody who started in dispatch and worked his way all the way up to sheriff. That's impressive. And regardless of what your opinions about that may be, anybody who starts with an organization and ends with that same organization with a career like that, obviously has a love not only for the agency, but they have a servant's heart. They want to serve the people. They want to serve their community. And they make changes from within. Now, does that mean that Polk County Sheriff's Office has never had any scrutiny, or they've never had any issues come up? No, you're going to have that regardless of your agency. What sets Sheriff Judd apart from a lot of sheriffs and a lot of police chiefs and a lot of the higher rank in those agencies is accountability. Sheriff Judd demands absolute accountability from everybody who works under him. It's very difficult. I read about a case where 3 deputies they resigned before they could be terminated, but a woman that was arrested lost a cell phone and over $700 in cash. And she was charged with drug possession. And in the affidavit, the officer who made the arrest said the amount of money was consistent with low-level drug deals, and that might be common. That might be common for the area, because of the crackdown on asset forfeiture. A lot of district attorneys, and I see where they're coming from with this, and I think it's a good general rule, but I also think you need to look at kind of, take each case on their merits. I've said that before on this channel as well. But what they are basically saying is, if it's not enough to raise the interest of the IRS, they're not really going to mess with it, which means any amount of U.S. currency over $10,000. And not a bad starting off point, but you got to be careful about that. Just like the affidavit said, that wasn't the issue. The issue is the money came up missing, a cell phone came up missing, and this is where integrity comes in. Law enforcement officers are human, all right? They make mistakes just like anybody else. The issue is, in law enforcement, is how do you handle those mistakes? If you mishandle something, a piece of evidence, one thing or another, you've got to come clean about it. You've got to be honest about it, and you got to say what you did to correct the situation. So in this case, the officer in question contacted the evidence custodian for Polk County, said, this money is missing. How do I go about making it reappear? Basically, can I pay it back? What do I have to do? The correct course of action would have been to just be honest. Contact sergeant, lieutenant, captain, whoever it is. Explain the situation and take your lumps. Would you have had to repay the money? Would you have to purchase a new cell phone? Yeah, probably. But that shows integrity. Hey, this is an honest mistake. We don't know what happened to the money. As far as they know, it could have just fallen off to the side of the road. But addressing that as soon as you're made aware of it, one, shows that you have integrity. And even if that was to come up in trial about that officer misplacing evidence or mishandling evidence, it's easy to work around that, because now you have an officer that you can say, yeah, this guy has integrity. Yeah, he made a mistake. It's a huge mistake. It was a huge error, but he immediately took action to correct it, took his lumps from it, and moved on. But that wasn't the case. Apparently, the officer involved and 2 other officers tried to either fix it on their own or make it go away on their own. The evidence custodian contacted their supervisor. The supervisor started an immediate investigation, and the officers were arrested for tampering with evidence. What I like about Sheriff Judd is that if you were to describe Sheriff Judd in one word, it would be accountability. He takes accountability for his department, takes accountability for what his deputies do. He takes accountability for holding criminals accountable for their actions. And he's famous recently. He did the March Sadness sweep, which was a human trafficking investigation, and it was huge. I think there were over 60 people arrested in this sting. And why, knowing Sheriff Judd's propensity for sting operations in Polk County, you would choose to engage in that type of criminal activity in Polk County is a mystery to me. because odds are you're going to get caught. You're going to be put on blast on the news. And I like that. Now, some people say that in his morning briefs and those press conferences, he's shaming these people. He's not giving them the benefit of doubt that, they have a right to be presumed innocence. And yeah, you have an argument there. But let me explain something. Sheriff Judd has won every election and subsequent re-election by 94% or better, which means that the people of Polk County absolutely love what Sheriff Judd is able to accomplish, what he's doing. The fact that he does hold people accountable, whether you work for him or whether you're a criminal, he demands accountability. And he's got the popularity, and he's able to show the results that show that his officers, his deputies, are actually out there being proactive in law enforcement. Now, a couple videos back, I was critiquing modern law enforcement for being more concerned about community policing and stuff like that. If you have a large agency and you want to have officers that go out and spend time in the schools or youth programs or things like that, hey, that's great. But not every single one of your officers needs to be dedicated to that, because if they're dedicated to community policing, they're not dedicated to actual policing. Now, some of these chiefs and sheriffs who are doing that like to say, well, community policing is policing. No, it's not. Community policing is a style of engagement to make officers seem less threatening, have more access, be more transparent. It's a PR tool. Can good things come from community policing? It absolutely can. Community policing is a phenomenal tool. It works. But you know what? So does broken windows. So does holding people accountable. Where Sheriff Judd just excels is in setting up these operations that are successful and yield a lot of fruit, and they get convictions. Once again, accountability. Every I is dotted, every T is crossed, and the Polk County Sheriff's Office is just making really, really good, solid arrests. And that's awesome. Sheriff Judd, he's got a master's degree. He's an adjunct professor. He's been to the FBI National Academy, leadership training. He's got a phenomenal resume. And so when you're getting to the truth behind true crime, it's real easy to look at the John Douglases, the Robert Resslers, the Roy Hazelwoods, the Joe Kendas, because they did such great work. But when you have somebody who, like Sheriff Judd, every time you see him, he wears the same uniform as his deputies. He's very involved in the day-to-day operations. He doesn't just sit there and say, well, you know what, go handle that. He knows what's going on in his department. And a lot of these chiefs and sheriffs are more concerned about being administration than they are about being proactive and productive members of law enforcement. Sheriff Judd obviously doesn't seem to have that problem. He yields results. His popularity, winning by over 94% in his elections, tells you right there, you can be proactive in law enforcement. You can hold criminals accountable as long as you hold your own people accountable. And people are going to respond to that. So if you're a chief or a sheriff who is constantly bowing down to political or administrative pressure, maybe you should take a play out of Sheriff Judd's playbook and do the job that you are appointed to or sworn to. People elected you to do that job. They didn't elect you so you could sit in an office and administrate. They put you in charge of that position so that you can combat the criminal issues that are facing your jurisdiction. On a personal note, Sheriff Judd, if you happen to see this, keep up the good work. Your department just seems to be doing great things. I love your videos, and I hope that you and your department stay blessed. Also, why can we not get somebody like Sheriff Judd to step up and run national law enforcement agencies like the FBI or Department of Homeland Security? Can you imagine the changes that Sheriff Judd can make? I certainly can. Y'all, this is Derek Judd with Cowboy Criminology. Y'all have a fantastic day.